Now, I don't want to say that I told you so, but Andretti told you so. I mean, I knew their work would continue at pace, but I didn't expect it to continue at that kind of pace. Woo! So I can imagine that back in January, when the news of Andretti's rejection by Formula One management came out, and then, it was utterly buried by the news that Lewis Hamilton was going to Ferrari the next day, that Liberty Media would have just seen that was the end of that. That Andretti would pack up their toys, they'd go back to Indiana, and then go back to what they were doing in IndyCar and in Formula E and Extreme E. Basically anything with an engine in it, Andretti's having a go at it. Yeah, well, they didn't. Come April, their Silverstone facility for not just their F1 team but other global projects opened with great fanfare. And then that was buried by the news of Fernando Alonso staying at Aston Martin for basically the rest of his life. This time on the same day. I'm sorry, was this choreographed or something? Once is weird enough, but twice? Well, anyway, I don't think Stefano Domenicali and the Liberty Media team can get themselves out of this one and bury this news because, this has spread quite a bit. What we learnt yesterday is that you do not mess with the likes of Mario Andretti, the 1978 Formula One world champion. He's taking the fight to Washington, D.C., and he's gained the support of 12 members of the US Congress in seeking answers as to why Andretti was denied entry, even though the FIA had granted them passage into the sport after a lengthy assessment period. Yes, I can see some points here that only 12 Congress people, and given what's going on in the world and America, surely there are more pressing matters to deal with rather than just allowing a team to go racing in an international sport. Has it really come to this point where we've gotten the US government involved in this, where they're basically going, now Formula One, allow Andretti to play with your kids or you'll be in big trouble, mister? Sport is pretty big in America, I get that, but surely public welfare and services, that should be a bit more of a priority. But even then, you've got to admire the tenacity of the Andretti family. We all thought it was all smoke and mirrors, but no. They meant business when they were going to continue with their work to get into Formula One. I have never seen a Formula One team go to their national government to demand their entry, or at least some justification as to why they were denied entry. This is crazy. And what's even crazier is that the government listened. What really interests me now is that this is effectively a two-pronged approach from Andretti. Not only are they getting the US government involved, but they themselves are talking with Formula One during the Miami Grand Prix weekend to thrash out the reasons why they were denied entry and to work with Formula One to find ways that they can take part earlier than 2028. Or if they can't, then, well, lobbying and legislation. Maybe just some more understanding about the January response from Formula One, which was so mired in legalese and was so immensely long that they probably hoped that nobody would read it. But I read it. We all read it. Not only that, but we saw how sad Mario Andretti was. He was devastated. This would have been the culmination of all of the work that he had put in, his son had put in, the entire Andretti Global organization. Formula One would have been the pinnacle, the jewel and the crown in their efforts, but it was taken away from them, seemingly for no reason. But that sadness has now gone. There is vitriol here now, as well as indignation, as he says here when he was talking with Associated Press. Ahem. I was offended, actually. I don't think we deserve that, to be honest with you. He's referring to the remark that F1 made that they wouldn't be competitive. It's a big investment in the series, and you'd think they'd welcome that. Even the value of the series is more valuable with 11 teams than 10, so, I don't know. Tell us what is really wrong. We're the ones that worked it out, and GM said it over and over, Andretti or nothing, and then F1 still tried to take it. That's referring to when Formula One tried to tempt General Motors away from Andretti and work with their existing teams, trying to woo them away, but then General Motors said no. There's an undercurrent there that I don't understand, quite honestly, but if they want blood, well, I'm ready. Okay, granted, this isn't the most elegant way to get your team into Formula One, or is it the most tasteful? It's going to leave a sour taste in many mouths of team principals and teams themselves. If you do get entry, you take part, but the only way you got in is because outside organizations basically bullied Formula One into taking you. I don't think Andretti really wanted this. They wanted to go through the proper channels and get into Formula One through all the typical bells and hoops and red tape that all the other teams get through. The FIA gave them approval, but Formula One didn't. They want to know why. And Formula One dragged their heels, they stonewalled, and now we've gotten to where we are today. It's all come back to bite them so hard that it's created bipartisanship. Democratic and Republican congressmen and women agreed that there is a problem here that they want answers for. Seriously, this is a big deal. These days, trying to get bipartisan anything is a huge achievement in of itself. These days, it's like trying to get Mike Crack to say anything negative about Lance Stroll. It basically ain't gonna happen. The questions themselves are fairly simple and are probably there to further motivate Liberty Media to talk to Andretti Global seriously during the Miami Grand Prix weekend, with the breath of politicians down their necks. The deadline for an answer from this letter is tomorrow as of this recording, May the 3rd. This is serious. They want answers right now before the Miami Grand Prix even starts. And it's not like Liberty Media aren't already in hot water. One of their own outfits, Live Nation, is in trouble regarding antitrust stuff and ticket sales. Anyway, the 3 questions I will show on the screen, but I'll give you a basic summary as to what they are because they are quite lengthy and I won't want to take up too much of your time. So in short, these are the questions. 1. On what grounds did F1 reject Andretti, especially as it could be the first fully American-owned and built F1 team? Question 2. How does F1's refusal to admit Andretti and GM align with the Sherman Antitrust Act, given its potential benefits to European incumbents? And question 3. Considering General Motors' plan to sell Cadillacs in Europe once more soon, how much did market share concerns influence F1's decision to deny Andretti's entry into the sport? Now, of course, this isn't a legally binding document, but you gotta think of the ramifications if Liberty Media and Formula One management ignored this document, because there isn't any issue yet. The government just wants to know the justifications as to why things went down, and whether General Motors' influence in Formula One might have affected the overall result. But whatever they do, and whatever answer they give, even if it's something that actually appeases the government and they're okay with it, they've got to answer it. They cannot ignore this. This is not something that you can take lightly. If this had all taken place under Bernie Ecclestone, these talks would have been dismissed. He would have laughed it off. He would have talked to his high-powered friends and come up with some kind of compromise. No, actually, they would have never happened, because he would have allowed Andretti to go racing, because he would have recognized Mario Andretti's significance to the sport, being a former world champion. He would have seen what they've been able to bring to the table in terms of money and American audiences, and he would have gone, I need some of that. And he would have seen it immediately and not feel threatened. Hey, more teams? That's better. That's good. We had pre-qualifying. We had so many teams coming casually with barely any money, and they could race. Andretti's got pockets loads of money. They've got General Motors behind them, and still that's not good enough. What gives? Even though Formula One is seen as a European sport, it's owned by an American company. They are bound by American law. They are in an American-based stock exchange under FWONK. They have to answer to this letter. And so thusly, if it is in breach of the Sherman Antitrust Act, they would probably have to respond in some way to allow Andretti to go in or face further penalty or further scrutiny. And they would also have to explain, according to the representative of Michigan, John James, why there is a cartel-like behavior regarding this. Now, this is important. Michigan, that's where General Motors is based. And General Motors has a lot of power. It's one of the biggest automakers in the world. So don't be surprised if they have a few lobbyists down over there in Washington. And if things do escalate, they can easily get more representatives on board, maybe even a few senators. So, you gotta be careful. Do not mess with General Motors. There are other representatives based in Indiana, of course, that's where Andretti is based, and Texas, most interestingly. And that's where the Circuit of the Americas, the Austrian Grand Prix, takes place. Also, this news has fanned out considerably. It's not just been kept to the realms of like Racing News 365 or Planet F1 or even Autosport or Motorsport. No, this has gone to MSNBC, ABC, all the big American broadcasters are talking about this news. Mario Andretti outside Capitol Hill. This has gone far and wide where many other politicians will be reading about it and many other people who might not be familiar with Formula One might be reading about it, including people involved in business. And also, according to Racing News 365, they contacted the White House to get a comment from the president. If you get the US president on your case about this, surely they've got to at least listen to Andretti. If this doesn't get resolved soon, I could easily see this spiral into becoming a full-blown diplomatic incident, where there is an 11th team that is run by an American outfit with a really storied legacy being denied entry by a European community that really looks down on American teams, even though they really want American money, let's be real here. And as they say in question 1, the Concord Agreement says that you can have 12 teams, and there's only going to be one extra team, so why not? Well, there's also the matter of what they're trying to do in the background, and they're hurriedly trying to get the new Concord Agreement in action, where there are only going to be 10 teams allowed in the sport, and guess how many teams there are currently in Formula One? a total of 10. If that stipulation in the new Concord agreement goes through, all the way through to 2030, the only way Andretti will get in is through dead man's boots, or more accurately, rich man's pockets, where they would have to buy out an existing Formula One team. And that, right now, could be over $1 billion. And that's just to get into the sport, not all the other expenses that actually accrue when you get a Formula One team off the ground. And then also, you'll then get some sort of stigma by taking away an existing name. And that in of itself is a sad affair, when one team goes and another one comes in, instead of just having another team come in to join the existing 10. Yeah, what gives? As for the Sherman Antitrust Act itself, it has precedents in motorsport. Even though it didn't go fully through to conviction, it certainly influenced the direction of where motorsport went in America. This act came up in legal filings made by A.J. Foyt during the IRL kart split of 1996, where there were accusations being hurled left, right and centre regarding monopolistic business practices, and kart using its reputation, standing and connections with sponsors to decide how IndyCar racing was conducted. Yes, Foyt's initial filing didn't really carry through because the jurisdiction where it was initially placed wasn't big enough, but the matter continued to rumble on, where it really peaked for the 1996 Indianapolis 500, where certain kart teams couldn't compete in said event during the ongoing dispute, and thusly there was a competing event set in Michigan called the US 500. What resulted is what many IndyCar fans call the split, and that resulted in kart fizzling out in of itself, and what we see as IndyCar carrying on today. I'm sorry if I've made that completely oversimplistic, but that's basically the general gist of it. That motorsport and that Sherman Act, yeah, it's not the first time this has been used, so there might be grounds for this to be taken seriously. The Act is good in trying to break up monopolies and getting big companies to listen, and this is what Andretti is trying to get through to Formula One management and Liberty Media, that they need to be listened to, using the carrot by talking to them personally, and the stick by using the government as a backup. Yes, it's not exactly elegant, but they've gotten to that point where they need to be taken seriously. They meant business. This is not an empty threat, I must stress this. And we've seen Andretti cry foul many times, and we thought, oh, eventually they'll just give up. But no, they mean it. They've always meant it. Their work continued at pace. Every single time we saw that, it then was followed up quickly, within months, and it will continue to do so. We will eventually, probably, see a rolling chassis, which is something they promised to do by the end of this year. I think that will definitely happen. They're not going to go away. Far too many times in the history of Formula One, we've seen prospective teams just pack up their stuff and go home. Their dreams of getting into Formula One being completely dashed, or they maybe try one or two races and then they go kaput. When we heard Michael and Mario talking about continuing their work at pace, they meant it. The team is a household name throughout America, a market which F1 is desperate to make the most of in the wake of Drive to Survive's success becoming a cultural sea change in the world of Formula One. Say what you will about the series, whether you like it or not, but it's definitely done its part in rejuvenating the fan base of Formula One. There are many young people that would have never considered being fans of Formula One. I know friends personally, my wife and I, who never would have considered Formula One, but then they told us they watched Drive to Survive and they completely understood. They got it. And now they find something to like about. Sure, they might not watch every single race, but they catch up eventually, and they certainly like what's going on behind the scenes. So those are two more fans. That's good. More people. We shouldn't be gatekeeping. For one, I'm thrilled to see new fans here. I see them in the comments all the time, and I'm really glad that you've joined Formula One, and welcome, and I hope you have a great time. That's great, fantastic, wherever you are in the world. And if Andretti does get in, we'll probably see even more fans in America coming to see Formula One that might have not given it a second thought. Even though we've got Haas, they're already dealing with their own legal rumblings. Now Gunther Steiner's trying to sue them for using his likeness against him and not paying him for it. But either way, we'll have a proper American team that is well known in IndyCar, and then they might give Formula One a go. That they would have never given it a second thought, but now they have. More fans, more personalities, and maybe, instead of, another American race at a brand new road street track, go back to Indianapolis themselves on Andretti's backyard. That would be fantastic. And right now, the current F1 teams are gatekeeping a perfectly legitimate outfit who has a substantial trophy cabinet, experience in a swathe of different disciplines of motorsport across the planet, and plenty of support in the form of sponsors, and now politicians. If Andretti were to join right now, it would certainly pique even more American interest, and genuine, long-lasting interest. Not just flash-in-the-pan stuff, not just because Logan Sargent has been wheeled out once or twice, and then just dropped by Williams, as per the rumours. And also, they want to see see their homegrown American team taking down damn Europeans with their fancy cars, them Ferraris and their Mercedes, and then powered Andretti and GM Cadillac power, yeah! Sorry if I'm demeaning your culture there, but let's be real here. I think they would be extremely passionate if Andretti won a race and Cadillac won the constructors, because they are doing well, Cadillac. They really need to be taken seriously. And also, this is going to fire up General Motors, because in a way, by rejecting Andretti, they rejected GM, and yet they also wanted GM. So I think GM took it doubly personally, so therefore they're going to be even more fired up to work with Andretti. They said it's either them or nothing, and right now, they're not even going to give F1 a second thought if they can't work with their chosen team. And again, they have a lot of power within the US government. They will be definitely gaining more interest with other politicians and more representatives in case this continues to rumble on. But at the end of the day, this is a wholly messy affair. We shouldn't have gotten to this point where Andretti has to lobby Congress people to get heard by Stefano Domenicali and his team. In an ideal world, Andretti would have gone through the FIA process, they would have gone through the Formula One management, they would have succeeded. The anti-dilution fee of $200 or $600 million, sure, whatever, it's fine. Going through all of the other tests and considerations before turning a wheel at the first race, sure, that's fine, no problem. They want to follow the process, Andretti. They are trying to be taken seriously, but they are being constantly blocked because there is a fear of prize money being diluted, that competition might be taken away, that the prize pot will be compromised, and according to these three questions, that maybe market shares in terms of the automakers, the manufacturer teams, might be compromised as well when Cadillac come in. Because if Andretti does well, and General Motors and Cadillac, because it's Andretti Cadillac, there'll naturally be more interest in Cadillac machines, much more interest than before. So that's got to be considered here. And that would be really sad if that's the case. Andretti just want to do it normally, but they can't. So therefore they have to resort to these things. It's messy. It shouldn't have happened, but it has. And that's on Formula One management. Look, Liberty Media, just listen to them, okay? Hear them out, see what they can really offer to the table. Otherwise, it's going to get even messier. Much like as is the case with Christian Horner and the situation at Red Bull, how it got extremely messy before Adrian Newey decided that he wanted to quit. You can find out more of my findings here in this video right now, because let's be real here, it's just going to get even more ugly with more people leaving.